It has been 2 years since my husband passed away, and for all that time, I have left this mountain retreat in Aspen empty and locked tight. But when I arrived today, my skin crawled seeing the yard. My husband's favorite roses were blooming beautifully and had just been watered. I decided to check the hidden CCTV footage. What I saw on the monitor made my heart stop beating. Before the story begins, please write in the comments section which city you are all watching this from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that this channel can continue to grow and present even more interesting stories. This is Revenge with Jine. The black sedan drove slowly through the thin fog, covering the Aspen Mountain area that afternoon. Behind the wheel, Diana took a long breath. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, trying to channel the sudden tightness squeezing her chest. 2 years had passed since Peter, her husband, died of a sudden heart attack. For those 2 years, Diana had never dared to set foot in their vacation villa. There were too many sweet, painful memories there. But today, she had to be brave. Her mind was made up to sell the villa. The high maintenance costs and the pain of remembering the place made Diana feel that letting it go was the best path. Diana turned her car into a small gravel road leading to the villa gate. She had imagined seeing a sad sight: overgrown weeds, peeling walls, scattered dry leaves, and the eerie atmosphere of an unmaintained empty house. She had even prepared her savings to hire a professional cleaning service before putting up the sale ad. However, as the wooden villa gate appeared in the distance, Diana's brow furrowed. She slowed the car, her eyes squinting to make sure her vision wasn't failing her. The sight before her was completely unexpected. There were no tall weeds, no dull paint. The wooden villa fence looked shiny as if it had just been repolished. Diana stopped her car right in front of the gate. She stepped out with hesitant steps. The cold mountain wind hit the long dress she was wearing, making the fabric flutter slowly. She touched her scarf, making sure it stayed in place, then walked toward the fence. Her eyes widened when she saw the front yard. Roses were growing very lushly and neatly. Not just any roses, but the imported variety that her late husband Peter used to love. Diana remembered exactly how difficult it was to care for that type of flower. It required patience, special fertilizer, and regular watering. If this villa had been empty for 2 years, these plants should have withered and died. But what she saw was the opposite. The petals were in perfect bloom, and the soil around them was loose and wet, indicating they had just been watered this morning or afternoon. Diana's heart beat fast. Question after question flooded her head. Who was taking care of all this? Was it Rick, Peter's cousin who used to be trusted with a spare key? But Rick always claimed to be busy with his work out of town and often asked Diana for money, claiming his business was struggling. It seemed impossible for Rick to dedicate the time and money to maintain a villa this far away. Diana reached into her bag, looking for the gate key. With trembling hands, she inserted the key into the padlock. Click. It opened. The padlock wasn't rusty at all. It turned very smoothly. Diana stepped into the yard. The atmosphere felt so alive, far from the impression of an empty house. She walked slowly toward the main door. The front porch was very clean. There was no thick dust on the marble floor. In fact, there was a pair of house slippers neatly arranged on the shoe rack beside the door. Those slippers looked new. Diana's feeling grew worse. She felt like a foreign guest about to enter someone else's house, even though the deed to this house was clearly in her name and Peter's. She pressed her ear to the solid oak door. Silence. No sound of activity from inside. Holding her breath, Diana inserted the key into the main door. The door opened smoothly without a single creak from the hinges. The scent of the room immediately hit her nose. It wasn't the musty smell of an old house, but the soft aroma of lavender air freshener. That was Peter's favorite scent. Diana stepped inside, her legs shaking as she stepped on the plush, clean living room carpet. Her eyes swept the surroundings. Everything looked perfect. The luxury curtains were neatly tied, letting the afternoon light in. The leather sofa in the middle of the room looked shiny. The glass table was clean without a single fingerprint. Even the flower vase on the dining table was filled with fresh flowers that had just been picked. Diana felt the hair on her neck stand up. This couldn't be the work of a ghost. This was the work of a human. Someone had been living here. Someone had been caring for this house as if it were their own. Was it a squatter? But if it were a squatter, where would they get the money to buy expensive air freshener and maintain such a beautiful garden? Diana walked toward the kitchen. Everything was clean. The refrigerator was on and humming softly. She gathered the courage to open the fridge door. It was full. There was fresh fruit, various bottled drinks, vegetables, meat, and other food items. The expiration date on the milk carton showed that these items had been bought just a few days ago. Diana closed the fridge door weakly. She stepped back a few paces as fear began to spread. She wasn't alone. Whoever was living here could come back at any time. However, Diana's curiosity overcame her fear. She had to know who the arrogant person was who dared to occupy her late husband's home. Diana remembered something. Peter's office. There was a secret room behind the bookshelf where Peter kept a safe and the server for the hidden CCTV cameras. Peter was a man who cared deeply about security. He had installed small cameras in unexpected corners that even regular guests wouldn't know about. Diana prayed in her heart, hoping the system was still functioning. She hurried up the stairs to the second floor. She made her steps as light as possible. The door to Peter's office was tightly closed. Diana opened it slowly. That room was also clean, just like the others. Peter's desk was neatly arranged. Diana went straight to the large bookshelf against the wall. She felt the bottom of the third shelf, pressing a small hidden wooden panel. There was a faint click, and the bookshelf shifted slightly forward. Diana pulled it, opening a gap wide enough for her body to enter the narrow room behind it. Inside the secret room, the air felt a bit stuffy, but the equipment was still there. Diana sat on a small chair in front of a row of dark monitors. She pressed the power button on the main computer unit. The indicator light blinked, and the machine hummed quietly. Diana held her breath, waiting for the system to turn on. The monitor screen glowed, displaying the security system logo. She typed in the password known only to her and Peter, their wedding anniversary. The system opened. The screen was divided into several small boxes, showing live views from various angles of the villa. The living room, kitchen, porch, master bedroom, all looked empty at the moment. Diana sighed in relief. At least for now, there was no one in the house but her. However, she needed answers. Her hand moved the mouse. Opening the recording archives menu, she wanted to see what happened last night. Diana chose the recording file dated 1 day prior at 8 p.m. The video began to play. At first, only an empty room was visible. Diana fast-forwarded the video. Suddenly, the main door opened. The lights in the living room turned on. Diana brought her face closer to the screen, squinting. A man walked into the camera frame. He walked casually, as if he were the owner of the house. He was wearing a white button-down shirt and lounge slacks. Diana covered her mouth with her hand, stifling a scream. Those clothes belonged to Peter. She knew them very well. When the man turned to face the camera, hidden behind the wall clock, his face became clear. It was Rick, Peter's cousin. Diana felt her blood run cold. So all this time, Rick had been staying at this villa. Rick, who always claimed to be living a hard life and begged for Diana's pity, was actually living in luxury here. Anger began to burn in Diana's chest. Rick had lied to her completely. But the surprise wasn't over. In the recording, Rick sat on the sofa, turned on the television, and then called out to someone. From the stairs, a woman walked down. She was wearing long silk pajamas that looked very comfortable. Her hair was down and long. As the woman passed under the light of the crystal chandelier, Diana felt her heart stop for a second. That face was very familiar. A smile Diana saw every week when they met at community charity meetings or had lunch together. It was Donna, her best friend. Diana felt her world collapse. Donna, the friend who always hugged her when she cried, missing Peter. Donna, who always told her to be patient and kept her strong. Donna, who always said she was busy managing her boutique, was actually here, at Diana's villa, with her husband's cousin. On the monitor, Diana saw Donna walk over to Rick, carrying a tray of sliced fruit and 2 glasses of drinks. Donna sat next to Rick, very close. Too close for a relationship that was just friends or distant relatives. Rick put his arm around Donna's shoulder intimately, and Donna leaned her head on Rick's chest. They laughed, chatting casually, enjoying the villa's facilities that were supposed to be sacred memories for Diana and Peter. Diana's tears fell unconsciously. They weren't tears of sadness, but tears of extraordinary anger. This betrayal was too painful. The 2 people she trusted most had stabbed her in the back in the most cruel way. Diana turned up the volume on the recording. The audio was a bit noisy but clear enough. She heard Rick's booming laugh. "This is so comfortable, Donna. Our hard work maintaining this place wasn't in vain," Rick said in the recording while taking a piece of apple. Donna smiled, then fed a piece of fruit into Rick's mouth. "Of course. Rather than being sold for cheap by that stupid widow, it's better if we enjoy it. Besides, she will never suspect a thing. Diana is too naive. She thinks you're a devoted cousin and I'm a loyal friend." Diana's hands clenched so hard her nails turned white. Donna's words slapped her harder than any physical blow. "Stupid widow," Diana whispered, repeating Donna's words with a voice trembling with suppressed rage. She kept staring at the screen, recording every detail of that betrayal in her memory. However, what happened next in the recording made Diana realize that this problem wasn't just about an affair or trespassing. There was something much darker, something that made the hair on her neck stand straight. Rick was seen getting up from the sofa, pacing back and forth with a serious face. "But how long are we going to hide like this? When can we change the name on the deed? I'm tired of having to pretend to be poor in front of Diana." Donna laughed softly. The sound of her laughter was cold and terrifying. Be patient, Rick. Everything takes a process. We managed to get rid of Peter 2 years ago without a trace. You can't be patient for a little paperwork. Diana's breath hitched. She felt the oxygen in that narrow room suddenly vanish. Get rid of Peter without a trace. What did Donna mean by those words? Diana froze. Her eyes widened, staring at the monitor, which now seemed to be showing the most horrific horror film of her life. Donna's words kept ringing in Diana's ears, over and over like a broken record. We managed to get rid of Peter 2 years ago without a trace. Diana's body shook violently. She hugged herself, trying to dampen the tremors taking over her joints. All this time, she and the whole family believed that Peter died of a natural heart attack. The doctor said it was normal because Peter did have a history of high cholesterol and often worked late. No one was suspicious. No one asked for an autopsy. Peter was buried peacefully, and Diana accepted that fate with sincerity. But now, that sincerity was shattered into pieces. Diana played the recording again, rewinding it slightly to make sure her hearing wasn't wrong. She put on the headphones hanging on the wall so the conversation would sound clearer. "Don't talk so loudly about that," Rick answered in the video, looking a bit wary even though they were alone. "If anyone hears, we're finished." "Who's going to hear?" Donna scoffed. She stood up and poured water into a glass. "This villa is isolated. Diana won't come here because of the trauma, and the locals don't care. Our plan was perfect, Rick. That herbal medicine I swapped for Peter's heart medication worked very slowly but surely. No poison was detected, just a normal heart failure." Diana covered her mouth tightly so her sobs wouldn't break out. Tears flowed heavily down her cheeks. So that was why. Diana remembered that a month before his death, Peter complained his heart medicine felt different, tasting more bitter. At that time, Diana wanted to take Peter to the doctor. But Donna always stopped her, reasoning that Peter just needed rest and that the expensive herbal medicine she brought was more effective than chemical drugs. Donna said the pharmacist had replaced the brand with a generic one that had the same effect. Diana believed her just like that. It turned out that was the beginning of the planned murder of her husband. Her own best friend had killed her husband, slowly, day after day, right in front of her eyes. Nausea hit Diana's stomach. She wanted to vomit. She wanted to scream. However, her survival instinct suddenly ignited. The sound of a car engine was heard faintly from outside the villa. Diana startled. She took off the headphones and sharpened her hearing. The sound grew clearer, approaching the gate. Diana's heart raced wildly. She looked at the monitor showing the front gate camera. A white SUV stopped there. Rick got out of the car to open the gate. They were coming. Panic gripped Diana. Her car was parked inside the yard, right in front of the porch. Rick would surely see it. Diana cursed her own stupidity. Why hadn't she parked the car outside? She was trapped. It was impossible for her to go out now and run into them. Rick was a big, strong man. And if they knew Diana already knew the secret of the murder, her life would certainly not be safe. Diana looked around the secret room. This room was narrow. There was only a computer desk and a file rack. The entrance was hidden behind the bookshelf in the office. If they didn't enter the office, maybe Diana would be safe. But if they did... On the monitor, Diana saw Rick's car enter and park right next to her car. Rick and Donna got out of the car with tense faces. "Whose car is this?" Rick asked, his voice caught by the porch camera microphone. He walked around Diana's car, peeking inside. "This is Diana's car," Donna exclaimed in a panic, her beautiful face turning pale. "Why is she here? Didn't she say she was going to her mother's house in Boston?" "Damn it," Rick cursed. He reached into his pocket, perhaps looking for a weapon or just his phone. "Find her. She must be inside. Don't let her see us here." Diana knew she didn't have much time. She immediately turned off the monitor so the screen light wouldn't be seen through the bookshelf gaps. The room was now pitch black, illuminated only by a sliver of light creeping from behind the bookshelf. Diana sat frozen in the corner of the room, praying in her heart, asking for God's protection. She heard the main door being forced open. Rick's heavy footsteps and the sound of Donna's high heels echoed on the floor downstairs. "Diana! Diana!" Rick shouted, his voice sounding angry. "Come out!" The sound of things being thrown was heard. They checked the kitchen, guest room, and the bathroom downstairs. "She's not downstairs!" Donna screamed. "Check upstairs! Check Peter's office!" Diana's heart felt like it was going to jump out hearing that order. Their footsteps climbed the stairs quickly, getting closer, getting louder. The office door was opened roughly, hitting the wall. Diana held her breath, pressing her hand to her chest, trying to dampen her own heartbeat, which sounded like a war drum in the silent room. Empty. Rick's voice sounded very close, separated only by the bookshelf. "She's not here." "Check the balcony," Donna ordered. Diana heard footsteps receding toward the balcony door. This was her chance, but she couldn't leave through the office door because she would have to pass them. She remembered that this secret room had a small air vent connected to the attic, and from the attic there was a crawl space leading to the back roof. It was a very risky path, but she had no other choice. However, Donna's voice was heard approaching again. "Wait, Rick, look at this." Donna's voice sounded suspicious. "Peter's office chair has changed position. This morning before we left, I straightened it to face the window. Now it's facing the desk." "Maybe the wind," Rick answered impatiently. "The window is tightly closed, you idiot. Someone was sitting here just now," Donna hissed. "And look, there are fingerprints in the thin dust on the desk." Diana closed her eyes. She had forgotten to return the chair's position. Donna's sharpness was truly terrifying. "Is it possible Diana knows about the secret room?" Donna asked suddenly. Diana's blood froze. If Donna knew or even just guessed about this room, her story was over. "What room? Peter never told me," Rick answered, confused. "Peter was full of secrets. Help me move this bookshelf." "I have a bad feeling," Donna ordered. The sound of Rick complaining was heard, followed by the heavy scraping sound of the wooden bookshelf being pulled by force. Diana was cornered. She saw the secret door handle begin to vibrate. They were trying to open it from the outside. Fortunately, the door locked automatically from the inside and was made of steel layered with wood, so it wasn't easy to break down. "It's so hard, like it's stuck," Rick grumbled after trying to pull it. "Use a crowbar or a hammer. There's one in the basement storage. Go get it quickly," Donna ordered hysterically. Rick ran out of the room and down the stairs. Donna was still standing in front of the bookshelf, her breath sounding ragged. Diana knew this was the only window of time she had. She couldn't wait for them to return with a crowbar. She looked up toward the air vent. With the strength she had left, Diana climbed onto the computer desk, carefully opened the vent cover, and pulled her body up. It was narrow, dirty, and dark. Her dress caught on a nail, tearing at the bottom, but she didn't care. She crawled through the dusty vent duct as fast as possible. Below, she heard Rick return, panting. "Move!" Rick shouted. "Bam! Bam!" The sound of the crowbar hitting the secret room door sounded terrifying. Diana kept crawling, tears and sweat mixing on her face. She reached the end of the vent leading to the laundry roof at the back of the villa. She pushed the vent grate until it came off, then jumped down to the concrete roof. Her legs felt sharp pain as she landed, but she immediately stood up. Rain began to fall in a drizzle, masking the sound of her steps. Diana couldn't take her car. Her car keys were left in her purse inside the car. She had to run. She went down the spiral stairs at the back of the villa, leading to the side garden. Sneaking through the wet rose bushes, Diana managed to reach the lower side fence. She climbed with great effort, ignoring the rose thorns scratching her hands until they bled. As soon as her feet touched the ground outside the villa area, Diana ran as fast as she could through the darkness of the village road. She didn't look back. She kept running until her lungs felt like they were burning, heading toward the main highway to find help or public transport. In the middle of her flight, under the increasingly heavy rain, Diana's fear slowly changed. That fear hardened, froze, and metamorphosed into a cold revenge. They thought Diana had run away in terror. They thought they had won. But they were wrong. Diana had indeed lost the physical recording evidence because she didn't have time to copy it. But she carried something more dangerous, the memory and knowledge of their crimes. While wiping the rainwater off her face, Diana swore in the name of her late husband. She wouldn't report to the police now. That was too easy for them. Prison was too luxury for killers like Donna and Rick. Diana would destroy them slowly. She would make them feel the same fear, the same pain, before finally dragging them to a real living hell. The game had just begun. The heavy rain that night seemed to race with the tears wetting Diana's face. She ran aimlessly along the edge of the dark and slippery mountain highway. Her legs felt sore. Her breath was ragged. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the pain in her heart. Every step she took hit in the asphalt. The image of Donna and Rick's faces laughing at her suffering kept spinning in her head. Diana finally found a small coffee shop that was still open on the roadside. With her body shivering from the cold, she asked the shop owner for help to call a local taxi. She didn't dare order a rideshare app, fearing she would be tracked by Rick through an app on her phone that might be tapped or monitored. Diana asked to be taken to a small hidden motel, far from the main road, a place that people of Donna and Rick's class would never visit. Upon arriving at the narrow and damp-smelling motel room, Diana slumped to the floor. She stared at her reflection in the old wardrobe mirror. Her scarf was a mess. Her dress was dirty and full of mud, and her face was pale as death. However, behind those swollen eyes, there was a new fire that would never go out. Diana swore she would not be a silent victim. That night, she couldn't sleep for a single second. Her brain worked hard, piecing together the fragments of past memories. She remembered again the days leading up to Peter's death. Her husband often complained of a racing heart and cold sweats after taking his medicine. At that time, Diana wanted to take Peter to the doctor, but Donna always prevented her, reasoning that Peter just needed rest and that the expensive herbal medicine she brought was more effective than chemical drugs. The next morning, Diana took her first step. She didn't go straight home to New York. She went to the nearest market. She bought simple, cheap clothes so as not to stand out and bought a used phone and a new SIM card. Her old phone she turned off completely and stored at the bottom of her bag. Diana had to become a ghost to them. After feeling safe enough, she rented a cheap car from a local and drove toward the town where her late husband's regular pharmacy was located. She remembered Donna's words in the CCTV recording about swapping the medicine. Diana had to prove it. If there was indeed a manipulation of the medicine, there would surely be a trace at that pharmacy, whether it was a purchase record or an employee's testimony. The pharmacy was still the same as 2 years ago, located in an old building on the edge of town. Diana stepped in with a beating heart. The characteristic smell of medicine immediately hit her, bringing back memories of when she often filled prescriptions for Peter. Behind the cashier counter, a young man with glasses was busy arranging vitamin bottles. Diana recognized him. It was Tony, the pharmacy assistant who used to serve Peter because Peter always gave him a decent tip. Diana approached, trying to act calm even though her hands were cold and sweaty. Tony looked up and was slightly surprised to see Diana. He recognized her, even though she looked thinner now, and her eyes showed deep exhaustion. Tony greeted her warmly and asked how she was. Diana answered simply, then slowly steered the conversation to the main topic. She said she was organizing her late husband's health files for insurance purposes and found that some prescription records were missing. Diana asked Tony for help to check Peter's medication history in the final month before he passed away. Tony seemed hesitant for a moment because it violated privacy. However, seeing Diana's pleading face and remembering Peter's kindness, he finally relented. Tony began typing on his computer, searching the 2-year-old archive data. A long silence occurred as Tony stared at the monitor screen. Diana squeezed the end of her scarf, holding her breath. Suddenly, Tony's brow furrowed deeply. He muttered softly, saying something was strange. Diana pressed him, asking what was wrong. Tony turned the monitor screen so Diana could see it. He explained that in that last month, the routine heart medicine prescriptions from Peter's specialist did indeed enter the system, but they were never filled. The pickup of those medicines was cancelled. In their place, there were transactions for the purchase of high-dose imported herbal medicine and energy-boosting supplements in large quantities. Diana was stunned. She asked who made those transactions. Tony tried to remember. He said at that time the person who came was not Peter, but a woman claiming to be a relative. The woman said Peter wanted to try alternative treatment, and the doctor had agreed. In fact, the herbal medicine bought had the effect of drastically increasing heart rate. It was very dangerous for someone with coronary heart disease like Peter. Tony admitted he had warned the woman, but she insisted and even showed a power of attorney signed by Peter's wife, which was Diana herself. Diana's blood boiled. She had never signed any power of attorney for the purchase of that herbal medicine. She asked Tony to show the physical archive evidence of that power of attorney if it still existed. Tony went to the back storage for a long time. Every minute that passed felt like an hour to Diana. Finally, Tony returned with a dusty folder. He took out a worn piece of paper. Diana grabbed the paper with trembling hands. There was a signature in Diana's name, but the lines were stiff, and it was clearly a forgery. And what made Diana even more certain was the date written there. On that date, Diana was hospitalized with the flu, making it impossible for her to have signed that paper. Diana asked Tony if he remembered the characteristics of the woman who took the medicine. Tony closed his eyes, trying to dig into his old memories. He said the woman was beautiful, had long hair, spoke very sweetly and convincingly, and her perfume was very strong. Tony also remembered the woman wore a gold bracelet with a charm shaped like the letter D. That description was more than enough. It was Donna. That letter D charm bracelet was a birthday gift from Diana to Donna 3 years ago. The evidence was now very clear. Donna hadn't just poisoned Diana's mind, but literally poisoned Peter's body by swapping his life-saving medicine with a deadly poison. Diana asked for copies of all transaction records and a photocopy of the fake power of attorney. Tony gave them with a look of concern, as if he had just realized he had unintentionally been part of the tragedy of Peter's death. Diana thanked Tony and told him to keep her visit a secret from anyone, especially if someone else asked about Peter's prescriptions. After pocketing the evidence, Diana left the pharmacy. The hot midday sun was unable to warm her body, which felt frozen by the bitter reality. Inside the car, Diana stared at the sheets of paper in her hand. This was her first weapon, evidence of a cold-blooded, well-planned murder. However, Diana knew she couldn't go to the police yet. Rick and Donna had money and connections. They could bribe the law or make the original evidence disappear if Diana moved recklessly. Diana had to destroy them from the inside, making them suspicious of each other until they themselves exposed their crimes. After getting the evidence from the pharmacy, Diana decided to play the best role of her life. She wouldn't run. She would face them. Diana reactivated her old phone. Instantly, hundreds of message notifications and missed calls from Donna and Rick flooded her screen. Diana took a long breath, calming her racing heart, then pressed the call button for Donna's number. She had to sound normal, as if she were the same stupid and naive Diana, not the Diana who had just escaped through an air vent last night. The dial tone rang twice before it was finally picked up. Donna's voice sounded panicked and hysterical on the other end. Donna immediately bombarded Diana with questions. Where was she now? Why was her car at the villa but she was gone? Why had her phone been off all day? Donna's acting was truly extraordinary, sounding so worried like a true best friend. Diana closed her eyes, imagining Donna's devious face, then began to speak in a weak and trembling voice, as if she were sick. Diana made up a story that yesterday afternoon she had indeed arrived at the villa. However, as soon as she got out of the car and was about to open the door, she felt extraordinary dizziness and shortness of breath. She claimed she saw a large black shadow on the porch, resembling the figure of the late Peter, with an angry face. Diana said she was so terrified and panicked that she ran away, leaving the car behind and hitched a ride on a passing vegetable truck to get to the highway. Then she went straight back to New York by public bus because she was too shocked to drive. She reasoned she turned off her phone because she wanted to calm herself and only dared to turn it on now. On the other end of the phone, there was a moment of silence. Diana knew Donna was processing the story, weighing whether it made sense or not. However, Diana knew Donna's weakness. Donna always considered Diana a weak, fearful woman who believed in mystical things. The story about seeing Peter's ghost would surely make sense to Donna, especially considering Donna herself had hidden guilt. Sure enough, Donna's voice changed to be calmer. There was even a hint of suppressed relief. Donna said she was thankful Diana was safe. Donna then lied, saying that she and Rick happened to be passing through the mountain area for business and saw Diana's car parked at the empty villa. That's why they went in to check. Diana suppressed a feeling of nausea hearing that lie. She pretended to thank Donna for caring. Diana even asked Donna and Rick for help to bring her car back to New York because she was still too afraid to return to that villa. Donna enthusiastically agreed. She said she would immediately take care of the car and deliver it to Diana's house. The conversation ended with Donna promising to accompany Diana to calm down later that night. Diana turned off the phone and threw it onto the car seat. She laughed bitterly. They had taken the bait. Now they felt safe. They thought their secret was still kept. And that sense of security was exactly what would be their downfall. That evening, Diana had returned to her home in New York. She cleaned herself up, put on neat house clothes, and waited for her enemies to arrive. Around 8 p.m., Donna and Rick arrived, bringing Diana's car. They entered the house with faces full of fake concern. Rick, whom Diana had seen on CCTV laughing satisfied while smoking, was now acting as the protective cousin. He lectured Diana not to go alone to a quiet place like that villa. Donna sat next to Diana, holding her hand and massaging her shoulders gently. Donna's touch felt like hot coals on Diana's skin. However, Diana forced herself to smile weakly and say thank you. When Donna went to the kitchen to make tea, Diana launched her first attack. She intentionally placed a brown envelope on the coffee table, right in front of where Rick was sitting. That envelope was empty, but on the outside, Diana had written one sentence in red marker: Witness to August 12th. August 12th was the date of Peter's death. Rick, seeing that writing, immediately tensed up. His eyes widened staring at the envelope. Then he looked at Diana suspiciously. Diana pretended not to notice. She was busy looking for a tissue in her bag. "What is this, Diana?" Rick asked, his voice sounding choked. His hand pointed at the envelope. Diana turned with an innocent face. "Oh, that? I don't know. This morning it was in the mailbox in front of the house. I haven't had a chance to open it. Maybe it's a bill or something." "Why, Rick?" Rick hurried to hide his nervousness. "No, nothing. Just the writing is strange." When Donna returned bringing tea, Rick gave a signal with his eyes to Donna toward the envelope. Donna's face also turned pale instantly. The atmosphere of the living room, which had been warm with pretend laughter, suddenly turned tense and cold. Diana enjoyed every second of it. She saw cold sweat begin to appear on Rick's forehead. After they left, Diana knew they wouldn't be able to sleep. And sure enough, Diana didn't stop there. She used the new phone she bought at the market to send a text message to Rick's number. The message read, "The herbal medicine tastes bitter, doesn't it? I saw you at the pharmacy that day. Diana turned off the phone immediately after the message was sent. She imagined the panic happening between them right now. In the car on the way home, Rick slammed the steering wheel to the side of the road. He showed the message to Donna. Rick's face was red with anger and fear. "Who sent this? Who knows?" Rick screamed. Donna grabbed the phone. Her eyes moved wildly reading the text. "It's impossible for anyone to know. I gave that pharmacy assistant, Tony, hush money back then. Don't tell me he betrayed us. Or maybe Diana knows," Rick accused, panicked. "It's impossible for it to be Diana. You saw for yourself earlier. She was like a fool, terrified of a ghost." Donna countered loudly, though her voice sounded hesitant. "This must be someone else, someone trying to blackmail us." A massive argument broke out inside the luxury car. They blamed each other. Rick accused Donna of being careless when buying the medicine, and Donna accused Rick of being too paranoid. Their evil alliance began to crack. Fear is the most powerful weapon to divide loyalty. In her silent house, Diana sat in her late husband's office chair. She stared at their wedding photo hanging on the wall. "Peter," Diana whispered softly, "they have just tasted the appetizer. I haven't served the main course yet." Diana began to arrange her next plan. A plan that would make Rick and Donna feel terrorized by the shadows of their own sins, until they hoped it was better to die than to live in fear. Fear is the most real ghost. Since receiving the threat from the unknown number, Rick and Donna's lives had turned into an endless nightmare. They could no longer sleep soundly. Every ring of the phone made them jump. Rick became paranoid, constantly peeking from behind his apartment curtains, suspicious that someone was watching. Meanwhile, Donna, behind her cracking calm face, was busy thinking of a way to save herself. They both came to the same conclusion. They needed a large amount of cash as soon as possible. That money was planned to be used to bribe the mysterious blackmailer, or if things got worse, as supplies to flee abroad. The only source of wealth they hadn't tapped into yet was the gold bars belonging to Peter that Rick believed were hidden behind a wall in the Aspen villa. That very night, they decided to return to the villa. Rick drove his car down the highway toward Aspen at high speed. In the passenger seat, Donna sat restlessly, twisting the end of her silk blouse. There was no warm conversation as usual. The air inside the car was heavy and tense. Upon arriving at the villa, the atmosphere felt much colder than before. A thick fog descended, covering the yard, making the beautiful roses look faint and terrifying, like hands reaching out from the ground. Rick opened the main door roughly, turning on every light in the house. He didn't want a single dark corner. Unbeknownst to them, Diana was already there. She knew their thought process. Greed would always lead them back to where the treasure was. Diana had parked her car far away in the pine forest area. Then she snuck in through the back door, whose key only she and Peter knew. Now, Diana was hiding in the secret control room behind the bookshelf, the same place she first saw their betrayal. But this time, Diana wasn't just watching. She held control over the smart home system Peter had installed just months before passing away. A system that Rick and Donna never knew how to operate correctly. Rick and Donna began tearing apart the living room. Rick brought a large hammer, tapping on the wall near the fireplace, looking for a different sound indicating a storage hollow. The sound of the hammer taps echoed through the silent house. Donna helped by holding a flashlight, her face looking tired and stressed. As they were busy arguing about the safe's position, Diana started her action. Through the control panel in the secret room, she suddenly cut the power to the living room. Pitch black. Donna screamed in shock. Rick cursed loudly, turning on his phone's flashlight with trembling hands. "It's just a normal power outage. Don't be hysterical. I'll go check," Rick barked, though his own voice sounded panicked. "Turn on the generator, Rick. I don't like the dark," Donna pleaded. Before Rick could move, the sound of classical music began to drift from the master bedroom upstairs. It was Peter's favorite song, the song he always played while relaxing in the afternoon. The music sounded soft, but very clear in the middle of the night's silence. Rick and Donna's faces paled instantly. They stared at each other with wide eyes. "Who turned on that music?" Donna whispered, her body pressing against Rick. "Maybe a short circuit triggered the automatic radio," Rick answered, trying to find logic though his legs felt heavy. "Let's check." With hesitant steps, they climbed the stairs to the second floor. As they got closer to the master bedroom, a very familiar aroma began to be smelled. The scent of sandalwood mixed with mint. That was Peter's signature cologne. The scent was so strong, as if Peter had just passed through that corridor a few seconds ago. Donna covered her nose, her eyes beginning to well up from fear. "Rick, this scent? It's Peter's scent." "Shut up, Donna. It's just leftover air freshener leaking," Rick countered, but cold sweat was pouring down his forehead. Rick kicked the master bedroom door open. Empty. There was no one there. The classical music stopped abruptly the moment the door opened. Silence once again took over. However, their gaze was fixed on one object in the middle of the room. Peter's rattan rocking chair, facing the window, was now rocking gently. Creak, creak, creak. The movement was constant, as if someone were sitting there enjoying the night view. Donna screamed hysterically and immediately ran out of the room and down the stairs. Rick, trying to act brave, pointed the hammer at the empty chair. "Come out! Who's there? Don't play with me!" he shouted. No answer, only the sound of the wind howling outside the window. Rick's courage collapsed. He turned and ran after Donna to the floor below. When they reached the dining room, they were shocked again by the sight on the table. There, on the clean glass table, lay a large white envelope. In fact, 10 minutes ago when they entered, that table was empty. Rick approached the table with labored breath. He took the envelope. Inside was a photocopied sheet of paper. It was a copy of a fake medical report, made to look like the results of a re-autopsy of Peter's body, complete with a hospital stamp. At the bottom of the paper, it was written in bold ink. Cause of death, aconitum herbal poison, known by witness. Rick's hands shook violently until the paper fell to the floor. Donna picked it up and read it briefly. Her knees went weak. She fell sitting on the floor. "They know, Rick. They know the type of poison." Donna sobbed. "We have to get out of here. Peter's ghost is here. He wants revenge." "It's not a ghost. It's a person." Rick grabbed Donna's shoulders roughly, shaking her to make her realize. "Ghosts can't have photocopied documents. Someone entered here. We're being trapped." Rick ran to the front door, intending to chase the intruder. However, when he tried to open the door, the handle was stuck, locked from the outside. He tried the back door, the windows. Everything was tightly locked. The automatic iron shutters Peter had installed for security suddenly lowered, covering all the windows and doors, trapping them inside like rats in a cage. From the hidden speakers in the ceiling, the recording of Peter's laughter was heard as he joked with Diana years ago. That laughter sounded warm to others, but to Rick and Donna that night, it sounded like a death sentence. The morning sun seeped through the vent gaps, but it was unable to warm the atmosphere inside the villa, which felt like a prison. Rick and Donna had spent the night sitting huddled in the corner of the living room, staying awake all night, with red eyes and thick, dark circles. The security iron shutters finally opened automatically at 6 a.m., according to the system setting Diana had programmed. As soon as the gap opened, Rick immediately dragged Donna out of that house. They no longer cared about the gold bars or the treasure behind the wall. All they wanted was to get as far as possible from that cursed villa. However, the terror of the night had changed the dynamic of their relationship. The sense of mutual trust that had been the foundation of their crimes was now completely destroyed. On the journey back to New York, Donna was secretly planning her own move. She felt Rick was too careless and emotional. If she stayed with Rick, Donna was sure she would be dragged down into ruin. She had to save herself. She remembered the villa deed she had managed to steal from Rick's safe a few days ago. She had made a fake duplicate for Rick, while the original was in her handbag now. Donna intended to sell the villa as soon as possible to a problematic property dealer she knew through her socialite network, then flee with the money abroad, leaving Rick alone to face the ghost or the blackmailer. Diana, who was monitoring their phones through a tracking app she had installed when she borrowed Rick's phone before under the pretense that her battery was dead during a family event, knew about this movement. She read the text message Donna sent to someone named Mr. Harrison, agreeing on a meeting at an old warehouse on the outskirts of New York for a cash real estate transaction. Diana smiled coldly. This was a golden opportunity to pit them against each other until they were destroyed. Diana immediately sent an anonymous message to Rick's number. The message was short but deadly. Your partner is betraying you and selling your assets. Old warehouse, 4 Marsh Creek Road, 10 a.m. Don't let her run away with your money. Rick, who was driving, read the message while stopped at a red light. His eyes widened. He turned toward Donna, who was pretending to sleep next to him. Rick checked Donna's handbag roughly as the woman jumped in shock. "What are you doing, Rick?" Donna screamed. Rick found the folder containing the original villa deed inside Donna's bag. His face turned red, holding back an exploding rage. "So this is your plan, huh? You're going to sell the villa and run away alone?" Rick slapped Donna's cheek hard. "Rick, listen. I'm selling it for us, to pay that blackmailer." Donna lied while holding her stinging cheek. "Liar! This message says you're running away." Rick slammed his phone on the dashboard. Without much talk, Rick turned the car around fiercely. He didn't go home to the apartment, but drove fast toward the warehouse address mentioned in the message. He wanted to catch Donna meeting her buyer and teach them all a lesson. Donna cried and screamed, asking to be let out, but Rick was blinded by rage. He locked the car doors centrally and drove like a madman, overtaking other vehicles dangerously. Upon arriving at the quiet old warehouse area, Rick saw a black sedan already parked there. It was the buyer's car, which was actually Diana's hired person, an actor who was only asked to pretend to wait for someone. Rick thought it was Donna's accomplice. He dragged Donna out of the car. "Where is he? Where is the person you want to give this deed to?" Rick shook Donna's body. Donna, who was already scared to death seeing Rick holding a tire iron he took from the trunk, cried out, "Rick, wake up! We're being set up. There is no buyer." Donna tried to reason with Rick, but it was useless. Rick walked toward the black sedan, shouting a challenge to the person inside to come out. As Rick's attention was diverted, Donna saw her chance. She pushed Rick with all her strength until he stumbled. Then Donna ran into the driver's seat of Rick's car. Donna locked the door and tried to start the engine. Rick, realizing Donna was about to escape, ran to catch her and hit the window glass with the tire iron. Crash! The side window shattered. Donna screamed, flooring the gas pedal. The car sped forward, almost hitting Rick. Rick didn't give up. He saw an old pickup truck with the keys still hanging in the door of the warehouse. A coincidence that was also arranged by Diana, who had rented the warehouse. Rick jumped into the pickup and chased Donna. A car chase happened on the quiet roads toward the outskirts of the city. Donna, in a panic, drove uncontrollably. She saw Rick getting closer in the rearview mirror. Her husband's cousin looked like a demon ready to take her soul. At a sharp turn, Donna lost control. The luxury car skidded, hit the road divider, and spun several times before finally stopping tilted against a large tree. Smoke billowed from the engine hood. Rick stopped his pickup right behind Donna's car. He got out with labored breath, the tire iron still in his hand. He walked toward the wreck of the luxury car. Donna was still conscious, trapped between the steering wheel and the seat. Blood flowed from her forehead, wetting the silk blouse she was wearing. She groaned for help when she saw Rick approaching. However, instead of helping, Rick actually laughed hysterically, seeing Donna's condition. "Where are you going to run now?" "Donna, dear, we are a package. If I'm destroyed, you're destroyed too." Suddenly, the sound of police sirens was heard approaching from a distance. Diana had called the police reporting a brutal accident and fight at that location. Rick panicked. He couldn't be caught here with a weapon in hand, and Donna in bad condition. He also had the original deed in his pocket. His criminal instinct took over. He forcibly pulled Donna out of the mangled car, ignoring the woman's screams of pain. "Get up! We have to get out of here," Rick barked. He dragged Donna into the old pickup truck. "Rick, it hurts. My ribs are broken," Donna moaned. "Shut up, or I'll finish you right here." Rick turned the pickup and fled toward the back roads leading back to Aspen. In Rick's messed up mind, there was only one safe place, that villa. The villa with high security and thick walls. He thought if he could get there, he could hide, take the gold behind the wall, and flee through the forest behind the villa. He didn't realize that he was actually running back into the lion's mouth. Diana wanted them to return there. The final stage was prepared, and this time there would be no way out for them. The old pickup truck Rick was driving roared loudly as it climbed the steep road toward the villa. Its old engine was forced to work beyond its limit, spewing thick black smoke into the cold mountain air. In the passenger seat, Donna huddled in pain. Her face was bruised. Her breath was hitched because of the stabbing pain in her ribs from the hard impact of the accident earlier. There was no longer the elegant Donna, no longer the arrogant socialite. There was only a terrified woman, trapped with a man who now looked like a madman. Rick gripped the steering wheel with bulging eyes. His mouth kept muttering incoherently about gold, the deed, and an escape plan. For Rick, the villa was his only last defensive fortress. He was sure the police wouldn't be able to touch him there. At least until he managed to take Peter's stash and escape through the woods behind the hill. Upon arriving in the front yard of the villa, Rick didn't park the car correctly. He let the truck stop sideways in the middle of the beautiful rose garden, crushing several of his late husband's favorite plants without a hint of guilt. Rick got out, ran around to the passenger door, and dragged Donna out. Donna screamed in pain as her arm was pulled roughly, but Rick didn't care. He carried, or more accurately dragged, Donna toward the main door. Rick used the spare key he always carried to open the door. As soon as they entered, Rick slammed the door and locked it tight. Then he piled chairs and tables in front of the door as a barricade, as if the police were going to burst in that very second. The atmosphere inside the villa felt tense. The sky outside began to darken because of the thick clouds hanging low, bringing signs of a big storm coming. Rick sat Donna on the living room sofa. Then he ran to the kitchen looking for tools. He returned carrying a large hammer and a crowbar. His eyes stared at the wall beside the fireplace with a wild look. That wall was covered with elegant classic patterned wallpaper. But for Rick, it was just a barrier between himself and financial freedom. Rick was sure, based on Peter's old stories when he was alive, that the secret safe was embedded behind that wall. Peter used to joke that he kept a rainy day fund in the form of gold bars in the most solid wall in the house. Without wasting time, Rick began hitting the wall with the hammer. Bam! Bam! The sound of the hits echoed throughout the room, breaking the villa's silence. Cement dust and brick shards began to scatter, dirtying the clean marble floor. Donna coughed because of the dust. She tried to plead with Rick to stop. Donna felt something was wrong with this house. Her feeling told her they were being watched. But Rick was deaf to reason. He kept hitting, tearing the wallpaper, destroying the cement plaster, until finally the sound of metal was heard. Clang! Rick's eyes lit up. He hit harder in that area, clearing away the remaining cement until a clean black safe door appeared, embedded firmly in the wall. Rick laughed hysterically. He dropped his hammer and knelt in front of the safe as if worshipping an idol. His hands trembled as he felt the clean surface of the metal. Finally, his ticket to freedom was before his eyes. Gold bars worth millions of dollars must be inside, enough to live in luxury abroad and forget all this mess. However, Rick's laughter stopped abruptly when he saw the safest lock panel. It wasn't a normal dial lock, but a digital panel requiring a 6-digit code. Rick tried entering Peter's birthday. A red light blinked, followed by a long beep, a sign of being wrong. Rick tried again, this time entering the dates of Peter's death. Wrong again. Cold sweat began to pour on Rick's forehead. He turned toward Donna, who was still lying weak on the sofa. Rick stood up and grabbed Donna's shirt collar. He shook the woman's body roughly. Rick shouted, asking if Donna knew the number combination Peter might have used. Donna cried, shaking her head. She said Peter never told her about the safe, especially the code. Rick didn't believe her. He accused Donna of hiding something. In the middle of Rick's panic trying to guess the code, suddenly the lights in the entire villa went out completely. Darkness hit instantly, making the room pitch black. Donna screamed in terror. Outside, thunder roared, followed by flashes of lightning, illuminating the room for a moment with a blinding white light, creating terrifying shadows on the destroyed walls. Rick turned on his phone's flashlight with trembling hands. He pointed the light around the room, alert for a sudden attack. Then the sound appeared. From the hidden audio system in the ceiling, the sound of heavy footsteps was heard. Thump, thump, thump. It sounded like someone was walking back and forth on the second floor, right above their heads. Rick pointed the crowbar at the ceiling, shouting a challenge for whoever was there to come down. But the sound of footsteps stopped, replaced by a recording they knew very well. It was Peter's voice. The voice sounded clear, calm but full of authority, as if Peter were standing in the room with them. "Do you know why I built this villa?" Peter's voice echoed in the darkness. "To be a sanctuary for my family, not a hiding place for traitors." Donna covered her ears, crying hysterically. She begged for mercy, kneeling on the floor, thinking Peter's ghost had truly come to demand revenge. Rick, who was initially skeptical, now began to waver. How was it possible for there to be such a specific voice recording? Did Peter already know their foul plan long ago and prepare this recording? Rick felt trapped. He turned back toward the safe, trying to open it by force with the crowbar. He pried the safe door with all his might, ignoring Peter's voice that kept talking about honesty and loyalty. "You want that gold." The recording of Peter's voice was heard again, this time with a colder tone. "The gold is there, but only a sincere person knows the key, someone who remembers the happiest day of my life." Rick went silent. The happiest day? He tried to remember. Peter's wedding date? He had tried that earlier, but it failed. The birth of their child who died as an infant? Wrong, too. Rick was frustrated. He hit the safe door with his bare hands until they bled. Meanwhile, Donna, who was huddled on the floor, suddenly remembered something. Diana. The key to all this must be related to Diana. Peter loved his wife very much. The happiest day for Peter must be related to Diana. "Try the date they first met, Rick," Donna whispered with a hoarse voice. "Peter once told me he fell in love at first sight on February 14th during a heavy rain at the campus bus stop." Rick stared at Donna hesitantly, but he had no other choice. With trembling hands and lit by the flashes of lightning from the window, Rick pressed the numbers on the safe. 140-295. Silence for a moment. Then a soft mechanical click was heard. The indicator light on the safe turned green. The safe door opened slightly. Rick cheered in joy. He felt he had won. He felt he had defeated Peter's ghost. Greedily, he pulled the heavy door wide open. Rick pointed the flashlight into the inside of the safe, ready to see the stacks of glittering gold. However, the smile on Rick's face vanished instantly. The safe was empty. No gold, no cash, no jewelry. There was only one small object placed right in the middle of the dark safe. A digital tablet whose screen lit up automatically as soon as the door was opened. On the tablet screen, Diana's face appeared in a live stream. Diana was sitting in a comfortable chair, looking straight into the camera with a cold gaze that pierced the soul. "Congratulations, Rick. You managed to solve the code. Diana said through the tablet screen. Her voice came directly from the tablet speaker, not a recording. But unfortunately, the wealth you're looking for, I already moved to my bank 2 days after Peter's death. You're 2 years too late. Rick roared in anger. He slammed the tablet to the floor until it shattered into pieces. Come out, Diana. I know you're here. Don't hide like a coward. Rick screamed insanely. He realized that all this time he hadn't been fighting a ghost, but fighting Diana, who turned out to be much more clever than he imagined. Rick took back his crowbar. He ran toward the stairs, sure that Diana was hiding on the upper floor in the control room where the recording came from. Donna tried to hold Rick's leg, forbidding him to go because she was afraid of being left alone in the dark. But Rick kicked Donna's hand away. I'm going to kill her, Rick growled with bloodshot eyes. If I can't have this wealth, no one can. Rick climbed the stairs 2 at a time. His breath labored like a wounded bull. He was ready to destroy anything in his way. However, as he reached the landing of the stairs, a very bright spotlight suddenly turned on from above, shining right in Rick's face until he was blinded and had to cover his eyes. Rick's steps stopped. At the top of the stairs, a solid black figure stood, holding control over the entire situation that night. The spotlight slowly dimmed, leaving dramatic, dim lighting. Rick lowered his hand from his face, trying to focus his vision. At the end of the second-floor stairs, Diana stood calmly. She didn't look afraid in the least. Her appearance was very different from the Diana Rick usually knew. There were no longer soft pastel long dresses. Tonight, Diana wore practical all-black clothes, her scarf neatly wrapped around her neck, and her gaze was as sharp as a hawk's. In her hand, she held a remote control for the smart home system. "Drop your weapon, Rick," Diana said, with a flat but commanding voice. Rick laughed mockingly. He felt he had the upper hand physically. Diana was just a weak woman in his eyes, while he held a deadly iron crowbar. "Who do you think you are ordering me around? You're here alone, Diana. No police, no security. You just made the biggest mistake of your life by showing yourself." Rick stepped up again, the crowbar raised high, ready to strike. However, Diana didn't budge. She just pressed one button on her remote control. Suddenly, from the left and right walls of the stairs, automatic fire extinguisher gas sprayed. The thick white smoke immediately enveloped Rick, making him cough violently and lose his orientation. Rick stumbled back, his eyes stinging badly. He swung his crowbar blindly at the empty air, but didn't hit anything. Peter installed this security system to protect us from robbers. Diana's voice echoed from the speakers on the wall, because she was using a microphone so her voice would be clearer in the middle of the chaos. But he never expected the robber would be his own family. Below, Donna, hearing the commotion, tried to drag her body toward the exit. She wanted to run. She no longer cared about Rick. However, the main door was still blocked by the barricade of tables and chairs Rick had made himself. Donna cried in despair, realizing they were truly trapped in the rat trap they had made themselves. The smoke on the stairs slowly thinned as the automatic exhaust fan turned on. Rick was still standing in the middle of the stairs, his face red, his eyes watery, but his anger had not subsided. He saw Diana still standing in the same position. Rick spat on the floor. "You're devious, Diana. You trapped us. You forged that signature, didn't you? You're the one who sent that message. I was just baiting, Diana answered calmly. You took the bait yourselves because of your greed. You murdered my husband. You poisoned him slowly. Do you think God is sleeping? To hell with God, Rick shouted, his voice thundering through the room. The confession finally came out, triggered by Diana's provocation. Yes, I planned it. I told Donna to swap that damn medicine. Peter was a fool. He had everything, but he was stingy. He gave me a small salary while he lived in luxury. He deserved to die. And you're going to join him tonight. Rick desperately charged up the stairs again, this time faster, ignoring the sting in his eyes. Their distance was down to 15 feet, 12 feet. Rick already imagined he would finish Diana there. However, Diana remained calm. She raised her hand, pointing toward the corners of the room in the ceiling. Look up, Rick, Diana said. Rick reflexively looked up. In between the chandeliers, in the corners of the ceiling, small red indicator lights were blinking from several CCTV cameras. Those cameras aren't just recording, Diana continued, her lips curling into a thin, deadly smile. This system is connected directly to the internet. Since the lights turned on earlier, I have activated a live stream to our family's social media group, to Peter's office law firm group, and the link was automatically sent to the state police emergency number. Rick's steps froze. The crowbar in his hand felt very heavy. What? His voice was choked. Everyone just heard your scream, Rick, Diana explained with a satisfied tone. Thousands of people are watching now. They heard your confession that you killed Peter. They saw your face, the weapon in your hand, and your madness. You just admitted your crime in front of the judge, the prosecutor, and the whole world. Rick's face turned as pale as a corpse. He looked toward the nearest camera with a look of horror. Reality hit him hard. This was no longer about a physical one-on-one fight. This was a perfect social and legal execution. Rick felt his knees go weak. The crowbar in his hand fell, clanging against the steps, rolling down. From a distance, outside the thick villa walls, the faint sound of police sirens was heard getting closer. Not one, but many. The roar of those sirens split the storm, becoming the background music to Rick and Donna's destruction. Rick backed up slowly, shaking his head in disbelief. No, it's not possible, he muttered. He turned, ran down the stairs, past Donna who was still sprawled out, and tried to dismantle the barricade at the front door. Move, I have to go. Rick threw the chairs in a panic. He managed to unlock the door, pulling the handle roughly. The door opened. The strong wind and rain immediately blew in. However, Rick couldn't step out. In the villa yard, dozens of spotlights from police cars were already waiting for him. Blue and red lights spun blindingly. Several heavily armed police officers were already standing in a ready position behind their car doors, pointing weapons at Rick. Hands up! Drop the weapon. You are surrounded. The firm warning from the police megaphone was heard. Rick froze in the doorway. Behind him, Donna cried out, realizing their fate was sealed. On the upper floor, Diana walked slowly down the stairs. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She walked past Donna, who was wailing, past Rick, who was frozen at the door, and stepped out onto the porch. The police didn't stop Diana. They knew she was the one who reported it. Diana stood under the shelter of the porch roof, letting the night wind hit her face. She saw Rick being tackled by officers. his hands handcuffed behind him, and forced to lie down in the mud, the same soil where Peter's favorite roses grew. Rick's face was full of mud, as dirty as his heart. Then Donna was carried out by the police medical team, her face full of tears and regret as she saw Diana. Diana stared at Donna, who was being carried past her. Donna tried to reach for Diana's hand, her lips moving to say the word sorry without a sound. Diana didn't pull away, but she didn't take the hand either. She just stared at her traitorous friend with a blank look. "Save your apology for the final judgment, Donna," Diana whispered softly, but clearly enough to be heard. "In this world, you have to pay all your debts in full now." That night, the mountain villa that was usually silent became a silent witness to the fall of human greed. Diana watched the police cars take away two people who were once very close in her life. She didn't feel happy, but she felt relieved. The heavy burden that had squeezed her chest for 2 years was finally lifted. Justice had been upheld, not with violence, but with the intelligence and patience of a wounded wife. In the middle of the storm that was beginning to subside, Diana knew that tomorrow morning the sun would rise brighter than usual. The news of the arrest at the mountain villa spread faster than a fire in a dry forest. Thanks to the live stream Diana activated, the drama of Rick and Donna's arrest didn't just become a matter for the authorities, but also became a public spectacle in real time. Thousands of people who witnessed the moment Rick confessed to the murder immediately shared the recording to various social media platforms. Within hours, Rick and Donna's names became the hottest topic across the country, complete with insults and curses from netizens who were disgusted to see their cruelty toward their own relative. At the state police office, the atmosphere was no less busy. The parking lot was filled with reporters' cars competing to get photos of the two sensational murder suspects. However, inside the cold, soundproof interrogation room, the atmosphere was very tense. Rick sat on a chair with his hands handcuffed to the table. His once arrogant face was now withered, his eyes red and swollen. Mud was still stuck to his clothes. In a separate room, Donna was being examined by a female investigator. Unlike Rick, who was still trying to put on a tough face, Donna had completely collapsed. She cried incessantly, rambling about the pain in her ribs and her fear of prison. The senior investigator, Captain Peterson, entered Rick's room carrying a tablet. He placed the tablet on the table, replaying the recording of Rick's confession on the villa stairs. Rick turned his face away, unable to see his own stupidity. Captain Peterson calmly explained that the video evidence, plus the testimony of Tony from the pharmacy who had been picked up by police that same night, and the discovery of herbal poison residue in Donna's apartment, was enough to charge them with first-degree murder. The maximum sentence was death or life in prison. Hearing the word death sentence, Rick's mental defense collapsed instantly. Rick's true cowardly nature finally appeared. He began to sing. He shifted all the blame to Donna. Rick insisted that the murder idea came purely from Donna. He claimed he was only manipulated by Donna's beauty and her smooth talk. Rick told a story that it was Donna who looked for the type of poison that was hard to detect, Donna who forged the power of attorney, and Donna who pushed to quickly take control of Peter's assets. Rick tried to convince the investigator that he was just a victim of circumstances who was dragged along by blind love. He even begged to be allowed to meet Diana to apologize, hoping his sister-in-law still had a shred of pity left. Meanwhile, in the room next door, Donna, who was played the recording of Rick's voice blaming her, exploded in hysterical anger. Feeling betrayed by her secret lover, Donna retaliated by exposing all of Rick's roles without exception. Donna revealed that it was Rick who had the strongest financial motive because he was buried in massive gambling debts. Donna admitted Rick had threatened to hurt her if she didn't help smooth the plan to get rid of Peter. Donna also gave the location where other forged documents were hidden by Rick, including their plan to fake Diana's death certificate in the future so they could control the entire inheritance without a trace. The two criminals were now prey to each other. The evil alliance they built on Peter's blood was shattered, replaced by hatred and a desire to bring each other down to get a lighter sentence. The police recorded everything neatly. The more they accused each other, the more complete the puzzle pieces of this crime became. Diana, sitting in the waiting room, accompanied by the family lawyer, listened to a brief report from Captain Peterson with a flat face. There was no joy in seeing their destruction, only a deep sense of relief that the truth had finally come out. The next day, the mass media splashed Rick and Donna's faces on the front page with a large, shameful headline. Their social reputation was shattered into pieces. Rick's large family, who had defended and pampered him all this time, now turned against him. They were ashamed to admit Rick as a family member. Donna's boutique business immediately went bankrupt because it was boycotted by customers, and all her assets were seized as evidence of money laundering. They truly lost everything: freedom, wealth, their name, and their future. Diana took the time to see them one last time before they were moved to the state prison. She stood behind the one-way glass of the temporary holding cell. She saw Rick sitting huddled in the corner of the cell, looking pathetic and dirty, far from the arrogant man who used to sit in Peter's chair. Diana pressed the palm of her hand to the cold glass. She remembered her husband's sincere smile, which was betrayed by his own cousin. In her heart, Diana said goodbye to that dark past. She had done her duty as a wife. She had cleared her husband's name and dragged the killers to the world's court. Now, the rest she left to the state law and the law of God. Diana turned, walking out of the police station, greeted by the morning sun that felt warmer than usual. 6 months had passed since the night of the storm in Aspen. The wheels of justice had turned to their final point. In the courtroom packed with visitors, the judge struck his gavel 3 times firmly, marking the end of the long and exhausting trial. The sentence had been handed down. Rick and Donna were found guilty of first-degree murder, forgery of documents, and embezzlement of assets. The panel of judges gave not a shred of mercy considering the cruelty of how they finished the victim and the lack of sincere remorse during the trial. Rick was sentenced to life in prison. When the verdict was read, Rick fainted in the defendant's chair. His hope of breathing free air was gone forever. He would spend the rest of his life behind bars, growing old alone without anyone caring, haunted by the shadows of his own cousin. Meanwhile, Donna was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Her beautiful face now looked old and wrinkled. Her eyes were empty without hope. The social punishment for them was even heavier. Their names would forever be recorded in criminal history as a real example of greed that destroys. Karma had paid in full every tear Diana shed and every pain Peter felt. After the court business was over, Diana returned to the villa in Aspen. However, that villa now looked different. Diana had done a major renovation. She threw away all the furniture that had been touched by Rick and Donna. The leather sofa where Rick sat, the mattress, even the wall where the safe was once embedded. Everything was remodeled. Diana wanted to erase the trace of their negative energy from that place. However, one thing she didn't change was the rose garden in the front yard. Those flowers kept growing lushly, blooming with charming red and white colors, as if celebrating the victory of good over evil. According to the verbal mandate Peter once spoke during his life, Diana didn't sell the villa. She changed its function. Now, an artistic wooden plaque hung at the front gate reading, Peter's Hope Foster Home. Diana dedicated the villa as a foster home for orphaned or high-achieving children in need of a place to live and an education. The sound of children's laughter filled the rooms that used to be silent and tense. The living room where Rick used to smoke arrogantly was now a shared study room where children read books and chased their dreams. That afternoon, Diana sat on a garden bench, watching her foster children playing tag among the rows of roses. The cool mountain wind softly blew the end of her scarf. A small girl approached Diana, giving her a white rose she had just picked. Diana smiled, receiving the flower and stroking the girl's head with affection. She felt an extraordinary peace in her heart. The feelings of revenge, anger, and sadness that used to burn her soul had now been extinguished, replaced by a sense of gratitude and calm. Diana looked at the sky, which was beginning to turn orange. She felt as if Peter were smiling at her from up there. She knew her husband must be proud. The wealth that used to be a point of contention and a source of disaster had now become a source of blessing for many people. Rick and Donna might have thought wealth was everything, but they forgot that a person's greatest legacy is the kindness they leave behind. It's all finished, Peter, Diana whispered softly to the blowing wind. You can rest in peace now. This house is clean again, as clean as your heart used to be. Diana rose from her seat as the evening bells began to chime from the village church in the distance. She walked into the house that was now full of light and life. There were no more ghosts of the past, no more fear. Diana had closed the dark chapter of her life and opened a new chapter full of hope. She learned that evil might win for a moment because of its cunning, but justice will always find its way. This was Revenge with Jane.